This is Flat Out Agility, an Australian agility podcast. I'm Grace. We are joined today by Amber Chambers, another recent competitor for Team Australia at the World Agility Open. I'm looking forward to hearing about her experience at WAO, but first, Amber, can you tell us about your agility journey?
Sure, thanks for having me. I started agility probably close to 10 years ago now with my oldest dog, Barley. Barley's my first dog ever, and he's a cattle dog cross Kelpie mix of some form. He was a rehome from a farm. We got him about 13 weeks old, and it was very clear early on that he was going to need a job. So we took him down to a local club and did a little bit of obedience, and they had agility going there. So pretty quickly we found ourselves in a class there, and then kind of progressed from there. You know, you sort of start with something a little bit fun and hobby-like, and then the more fun I was having and the more fun he was having, the more I wanted to go and seek training from different people and learn a bit more about the sport. So we did that, and worked with a few trainers privately, joined a few other like agility specific clubs, and then ended up with another interesting little dog her name is Millie. She's the dog that's taught me everything. She's a border collie, cattle dog, Labrador mix. And Millie was not the easiest dog in the world to train, but I loved agility. So kind of persevered there and did a lot of working with people about positive reinforcement and motivating her. She's nearly 8 now. She still finds trialing a little bit overwhelming, but she absolutely loves training. And then got my first ever, I guess, like dog for agility 2 years ago. So I also have a just turned 2-year-old Australian Shepherd, Keen, and he is keeping me on my toes. So we've just started trialing, and he is a lot of fun. A little bit distracted by the environment still, but is definitely enjoying it. So I guess I kind of got the bug, and then now I have 3 dogs.
Yes, I'm familiar with that exact experience. And so, how did you find out about the World Agility Open and what made you want to actually pursue it?
It's really interesting. So World Agility Open, I found out about that. So Tanya McAndrew is the team manager, and Tanya is one of the amazing people that I train with, and I'm lucky enough to call a friend. And she had been a couple of times. So I had heard a bit about her experiences, and when she said that we're going to take a team this year. Um, and, was asking people if they were interested. I went, "Oh, yeah, actually, I think that would be a really fun way to have a holiday in Europe, but also do agility and kind of, get to experience agility overseas." So I'd never done agility overseas before. I've watched it at the big competitions on live stream when they happen. I kind of found out that way, and I guess the community's small, so I knew a lot of other people that had been previously and had heard about their experiences. But it had been a little while since Australia had sent a team because of COVID and that. So I actually hadn't, I wasn't really in the agility community the last time we sent a team. So sort of just heard like memories, I guess, from people rather than following Australia live. So that's how I found out about it. So Tanya kind of encouraged me to submit an expression of interest. Um, and then I was on the team.
And when you found out you had made the team, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I was really excited. Um, Very excited to be part of an event the size that it was. I felt very honoured to be able to represent Australia as well. That was, a big thing. And I think I was really conscious of wanting to make sure the team was a really positive team, that everybody had a really good time and supported each other, and that it just felt like, I guess a bit like one big party the whole time we were there. I was really excited. And I was also, I guess, maybe felt a little bit responsible because we had some junior handlers on the team So definitely like responsible for making sure that I was an exemplary athlete over there and supporting them as much as possible as well.
And we've discussed in our previous episodes about WAO that the Australian competitors don't take their own dogs. So you guys borrow dogs from people overseas. So for your dog that you borrowed, what information did you have like up front before you arrived?
Oh, I had the coolest host. So her name was Rachel, and her dog's name was Otis. Otis was a little Labrador cross poodle, but he looked and behaved like a spaniel. So the whole time everyone kept being like, "Oh, he's such a cute spaniel," and I was just like, "Yeah, he's a cute spaniel." But so I had seen a lot of videos. Rachel had sent me um, all of the training videos that she was doing, any runs that he was doing at competition, either with her or with other people. So she was amazing and made sure that Otis had heaps of experience running with different people before I even got there. Um, Definitely like a list of cues. I knew his strengths and his weaknesses. Probably the thing that I didn't quite take into account was how much faster on the ground he was going to be than I was used to. So he was a super speedy little boy, which was really fun. So yeah, those were kind of the main things. And then I just tried to memorize the cues and watch her handling a little bit and watch other people's handling with him.
And how much time did you have with Otis before you actually competed at WAO?
Oh, never enough. I think I had 10 days with him. So I arrived very jet lagged on a Thursday evening. And then Friday morning, Rachel picked me up from the airport and we went straight to a 4-day competition. So that was really fun. And I got to run him at the competition. So I did a lot of NFCs with him there. Um, and then, that was quite nice to kind of see one, what competition was like over there. So I think there were 16 rings just at that one competition, which was huge. But like learned his warm up routine and learned the things that were tricky for us together. And then it was great. Rachel ran him in a couple as well. So I could kind of see if things did fall apart, like how she fixed them and what I could take from there. And then I had 4 days with him. We didn't do a huge amount of training in those days. I think we did 2 short sessions. Um, he was pretty exhausted after the weekend, and we were very aware that we had like a really big week coming up for him. And so we did 1 full team training, and most of the time it was just hanging out, getting him to love me, and I just gave him heaps of food all the time. So he thought that was pretty awesome, taking him for walks and that sort of thing. Yeah, and then we drove over from the UK. So we had a 2-day road trip together too. So yeah, about 10 days, I think, in total.
And what did you focus on to build that relationship specifically between you and Otis so that you would, compete together effectively?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Otis was very Labrador in terms of like if you had food, it was super easy to win him over. So I think probably that first weekend I spent with him at the competition, I probably gave him about 5 times as many treats as Rachel would usually feed him in a weekend. Um, Pretty much the first day, every time he just looked at me, I just fed him food. So heaps of that, and then just lots of like short NFC stuff too, where I could reward. So heaps of rewarding. If he was a little bit cheeky about things, I'd let him get away with it to start with. And then, reinforce the boundaries a little bit later on. So I just tried to keep everything really positive, um, and do all of the things that he loved. And yeah, food. Food was awesome. Food was made it so much easier. Just every time he looked at me, here's a treat, dude.
And what about like your handling? Did you have to adapt much about your sort of method of handling to suit him?
Yeah, I did a little bit. It was quite funny. I had a couple of cues that I used for my dogs that Otis used as well, but for different things. So that was probably the hardest thing. Was some of the cues were like the same word, but they meant different things. And then there definitely were a few things. So one of the things I really enjoyed watching in the UK. at that competition was how clear people were with their handling. I suffer from something that I call flappy arm curse, and where my arms tend to flap around a little bit while I run. And I really admired watching all these people in the UK run with really clear handling, no flappy arms, and amazing, sort of strong arms everywhere. So I tried really hard to do some of that. Um, Also, Otis was really fast, um, but sometimes he did want you to come with him. So I ran faster than I think I've ever run in dog agility. And I could hear one of my trainers in the back of my head the whole time being like, I knew you could run faster than that. So I am going to try and run faster here in Australia as well. But there weren't too many things that I had to change too much. The courses were all really beautiful on a lot of like natural lines for the dogs that definitely helped to support handling long courses. So the other thing probably I had to do a bit was try and get my fitness up before I went. I think some of the courses were like 240 meters long. So it's quite a long way to sprint if you're not used to it. So they're probably the main things that I had to do to change my like handling wise when I was over there.
My next question was gonna be, like, what about Otis that surprised you? But it sounds like it's the speed.
Yeah, it was the speed, but also the size. So I expected him to be bigger than he was, and he was just this cute little pocket rocket of a dog. So in my head, I think I had expected like Labrador, Poodle, or he'll be more towards the Labrador size, but he was actually really little, and that was quite sweet. I had never run like my dogs are all big dogs. So I had never run, sort of for a long period of time, a little dog. Um, and I really enjoyed it. He was a real cutie that way. And just like, he could jump up on your lap and have a cuddle and very easy to pick him up. Not that he loved that, but you could pick him up and give him a cuddle and that was quite nice.
And you've just spoken about how you were focusing on your own fitness, but what else have you done or did you do to prepare for an experience like this?
Panicked a lot, to start with, and then, I did a lot of, looking at course maps from the judges, um, looking at kind of trends, that were happening in the agility community. So I wasn't particularly surprised to see like a thread and rat or 2 in every single course, and usually one that required some independence. And the other thing I tried to do was like look at course maps and look at like what my handling options would be for them. Um, because Otis was quite a bit quicker than I'm used to, he had a really beautiful rear toss. And that's not like a skill that I use that often in a course. So I often would look at the course map and then go, oh, I could put a rear cross there if I needed to. So I was just kind of trying to familiarize myself with the length of the courses and the different sort of skills that we might see in those and, so that I guess I wasn't too overwhelmed when I got there. And then lots of talking to Rachel. That was probably the biggest, most helpful thing for me was that my host was so forthcoming in information. Any question I had, she answered. And, like if I'd go, oh, how would I handle this bit? She would send me a voice memo with all how she would and the different options and the different skills that he had. So yeah, they're probably some of the things. And then, yeah, I think lots of pep talks from my friends before I went. That was also really handy.
Okay, so you went to the UK, you've spent time with Otis, you've been running him in comps, you've been training. Then you get to the Netherlands. So tell me, what is it like? What's the atmosphere at WAO?
Oh, it's electric. It's so much fun. The atmosphere in the main arena is I don't even really know how to describe it, but all the teams get there and they put sort of claim a section of the bleachers. There's flags up. In our section we had a big blow up kangaroo that you could see from anywhere in the arena. The arena has all the country's flags hanging from the roof. So it sort of kind of lowers the roof and makes it feel like a really enclosed area. There's a cafe that you can sit at and look out at the course while you're having a snack. And every single country either has like a chant of some form or a song. Um, and so you felt like you were at a big sporting event. Um, and the other thing was that everybody was just really encouraging from every country. Like you could hear the audience gasp when mistakes happened across runs. Like everyone wanted everyone to do well. And it just made for the most positive and encouraging, supportive environment. Absolutely like something that will be hard to replicate anywhere else, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what did it feel like running, for Team Australia?
Yeah, it was actually a little bit emotional. So I only became an Australian citizen 2 years ago. I grew up in New Zealand and then have been living here for about 10 years now. And yeah, I think for me it was a real moment of actually like feeling Australian for maybe one of the first times. So it was a real privilege, a real honor. I only shed a couple of tears. I did manage to hold it together quite well, but at the opening ceremony when we walked out as Team Australia. Um, yeah, it's a really special feeling um, to be able to like take your country to the world stage and share your country with others. And um, yeah, I guess you feel a bit of responsibility too to make sure that like people come away thinking that, Australia is full of beautiful, lovely people who want the best for their dogs and want to support everybody else. So, very special experience. Um, and I hope that, that experience will stay with me forever and that it'll help contribute to my feeling Australian into the future as well.
I was gonna say, I thought I could detect a bit of a Kiwi
Yeah.
accent.
Yes, it is. I don't know if that's going anywhere anytime soon, but yeah. So I think I can be equally supportive for both countries. But yeah, it was pretty exciting. I have to say, I did love the Aussie, Aussie, Aussie chant. Um, but and this is a bit of a side note, but apparently we actually stole that from Wales ages ago. And theirs is Oggy, Oggy, Oggy. I don't know why, but it is. So it was quite fun because every time either Australia or Wales chanted, it did sound like Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi being chanted right across the arena.
Oh, I didn't know that either. That's funny.
No, yeah, but I guess we couldn't be mad because we stole it from them.
And so, speaking of, what was it like interacting with the teams from the other countries?
It was great. Everybody was so excited that Australia was there. We have had, in a couple of years previous, um, Emily lives in Germany, so she's represented Australia for us. But to have a full team there was awesome. It was really it was quite uplifting when people didn't realize that we were borrowing dogs. Um, they firstly thought that was amazing that we came over and did that. But secondly, that was a nice feeling to know that we didn't look too out of place with other people's dogs. The other countries were really fun. Probably the most exciting thing I think about that is throughout the event, everybody is trying to barter with their team shirts to swap at the end. So, after the closing ceremony, there's a big uniform swap. And the Australia shirts were very popular. Everybody was very, very much trying to get an Australian shirt. So you kind of come home with these pieces of other countries as well. And you know that like a little bit of Team Australia has gone to various countries throughout the agility world as well. So yeah, it was lovely, really exciting to sort of see and talk to all the other competitors. And I didn't have one conversation where I came away thinking, "Oh, that wasn't that nice." Yeah, it was just a really positive, fun, heartwarming time.
I've heard about the t-shirt swap. So, which ones did you come away with?
Which ones did I come away with? I came away with a Colombian one. So the woman that had the Colombian one had a beautiful Australian Shepherd that looked a little bit like my friend Lauren Archer, her dog Archer. And obviously, because I have an Aussie, I was a little bit partial to that one. I got a fantastic Czech Republic one and also a Polish hoodie and a really cool cartoon style Hungarian one. plus a couple of other sort of supporter shirts, which I bought while I was over there.
You mentioned how the courses are quite large. I think you said 240 meters. What how do they differ in other ways as well to what we're kind of seeing over here in Australia?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely the length. I think some of the things that I noticed were we saw a lot of sort of forced layering of the dog walk in a lot of courses. So there'd be like a straight tunnel to an independent backside or threadle wrap, where the handler was forced to layer the dog walk on one side or the other. There's definitely the lines were so you'd often look at a course and go, "Oh my gosh, that's so hard on paper." But then when you got out there and walked it, you're like, "Oh, okay, this makes so much sense for the dog." So even though the skills were required to manage the course, the way that the courses were set supported the implementation of those skills for the dog because there was no conversions on the line sent the dogs there. Definitely spacing between obstacles was in general, probably bigger than what we see here, for all heights. So, the every single height dog ran the same course. Um, some of the other things I think was we definitely saw lots of needing an independent seesaw. So being able to sort of lead the dog and be confident the dog was going to complete that end position on the seesaw without the handler close by. We saw some pretty cool weave entries that might be a little bit more difficult than what we're used to seeing here. Sort of layering of the weaves or flicking out of the weaves away from the handler. So yeah, definitely like sort of some really, really nice skills required. Definitely lots of directionals, layering, plenty of course, obstacles to negotiate, but all done in a way that just made sense for the dog's path. Think that probably and the other thing, which I guess you would expect at a world style competition, is that the course times were really tight, um, really, really tight. So if you had a bobble, you pretty much weren't gonna make it round in time. And a different rule that, people might not be aware of is if you got 3 refusals in a course, that created an elimination. So we're used to kind of that just being time faults, but yeah, 3 refusals, I think, yeah, meant that that was a nice E that came up on the board for you.
And what did you observe about sort of agility internationally in general that maybe you hadn't seen before, you think that, would benefit Australia from sort of taking on?
One of the things that I loved at the UK competition that I went to is that at the end of a run, um, the dog's reward and lead were in a bucket on the ground. So dogs just left the ring and all of them looked for the bucket because they knew that's where their goodies were going to be at the end. And I think that really it did a couple of things. It kept the ring moving really quickly. So dogs didn't have to be leashed before they left the ring. They obviously have to remain under control. But most of them just ran out and ran straight to the bucket, and then the handler would leash clip and reward there. So yeah, made the ring sort of run quite quickly. But I think it also really helped with that sort of end of run arousal. Um, prioritized sort of rewarding the dog and um, in the way that they wanted. I think it helped to kind of maybe deal with some of the end of the run um, reactivity or enthusiasm that we can sometimes see leaving a ring. Some other big things that I thought were really interesting is most of the competitions weren't fenced. So the equipment's just out on the ground, and 16 rings, and the dogs they're used to that. So that's just their normal dogs. I didn't really see dogs run out of the ring or anything like that. So that was something that, like, I'm not saying that's good or bad. It was just a difference or something that I noticed. There were a couple of other things. NFC was definitely really encouraged in the competitions where you could NFC. So in Kennel Club in the UK, you couldn't, but in Agility for All and Nexus, then you could. And it was really strongly encouraged that you did. And in those NFC runs, you could take in things like stride regulators or target plates for the end of the contacts. Um, you could also throw a reward if you needed to. And in Nexus, you could NFC with a squeezy tube of cheese food. And that was really beneficial for dogs that maybe aren't toy driven, that are really food driven. So to be able to sort of build that value for training in the ring with the type of reward that they like. So those were, I guess, a couple of things that were a little bit different. And I'd love to see Australia think about and maybe take into the future of agility here.
Back on WAO, can you talk us like pick a run from the time and talk us through like what were you thinking? What was your plan? How did it go?
Sure. Let's talk about snooker because snooker was probably the most stressful run I think that everybody on the team had. So snooker it works very similarly, I guess, to how we play snooker here in Australia. You walk the course, um, you get to choose your opening. You've got to do sort of three numbers and three reds, and then you go to the closing. And the aim is to get through it all before the buzzer goes off and you collect the points that you have gotten before the buzzer goes off. So I guess my experience with snooker is that most handlers uh, usually go, well, how am I going to get the most points possible? Can I try and get, as many sevens as I can in the opening sequence? So I think most of us in Team Australia walked something like 7-5-7 or maybe 5-7-7. And we're feeling relatively confident with that plan. It's probably good to note at this point that you walk your course at about 7 o'clock in the morning. And then you don't usually, depending on when you're scheduled for the day, but it can be 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon before you actually run it. So we all, had walked very early in the morning and then went out and started watching some of snooker and realized that absolutely nobody was getting anywhere near to making time with 7-7-5 with two sevens. So everyone in Team Australia, including me, was standing on the sideline trying to rewalk a snooker plan without having the opportunity to go back into the ring and walk it before we ran. So that was not probably the most relaxing experience, but all of us, with the help of Tracy Ryan, who was our team coach, she was fantastic too. So she helped us come up with another plan from the sideline. Now, traditionally, I suck at snooker. It's just not a game that I enjoy playing or that I tend to do very well at usually. So I got in there with my revised plan with little Otis, and I went, right, we're just going to give it a good crack and see what happens. And the cheeky rascal went to break his start line, but I did catch that in the nick of time, and he sat down. And we went in with our revised plan and we got through the opening sequence, which was fantastic. We didn't have any bars down. We didn't have any issues through that. And then in snooker at WAO, you had to make sure you got through the closing without any refusals. And now Otis and I, a thriddle wrap was not our strongest skill together. He had a great one with his mum, but I just couldn't get it together for him, the poor dude. And there was a threadle wrap in the closing, and I was almost certain we were going to get a refusal, but we did not get a refusal in the closing, and we got to just before the final tunnel. So the 7 obstacle was an ABC, and I think we got through 7A and 7B. The final obstacle was a tunnel, and the buzzer went off just before the tunnel. So it was probably the best snooker run I've ever had. And it felt pretty surreal that we managed to sort of get it together for that, given we'd had to rewalk on the sideline. And we weren't too close to time. So yeah, that was that was a fun one. And it was exciting to have the whole team kind of there and cheering, and yeah, yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was our only run that we didn't actually end up with an elimination on paper in the whole event.
Yeah, so that tells you how tricky and how sort of high level this stuff is.
Yeah, and it was interesting though, like, I guess one thing about agility scoring that's sometimes um, hard to see from the paper is, we had a couple of runs that were utter disasters where I think I abandoned partway through. But then we had a lot of runs where we just had one off course the whole way through, and the rest of the run was really nice and felt great. But of course, those both end up with the same on paper result. So I think that's probably like another takeaway from the event is that Team Australia had some cracker runs, even though sometimes the paper results didn't reflect the awesomeness of those.
Yeah, that's a big theme, so on this podcast certainly, but, it should be an agility where it's can't just be results based.
No, no, and I guess that's like, when you do agility, you don't do it just for the results, otherwise I don't think any of us would have made it this far. You do it for those other moments in the course that you can have a clear run that's pretty awful, really, and you can have an elimination that felt like you were on cloud nine the whole way through. So you do it for those moments, the moments that feel amazingly connected and the skill works, and they're the things that keep you going, not the results on paper.
Absolutely. And so what would you say was the most challenging thing about WAO?
Oh, the hardest thing was leaving. The hardest thing was definitely leaving. So it was leaving the whole team. Australia is um, geographically, we're just so separated. Really thankful that Nationals is coming up so that we'll get to do a bit of a reunion there. But, realistically, some of those people I'll probably only see every 2 years at Nationals. So that's hard. You create this beautiful bond as a team, and then you kind of um, yeah, you know that you're not gonna get to get one of Isabella's amazing good luck hugs before the run and, except for at maybe your nationals runs every 2 years. And the other thing that was really tough was, leaving Otis. So, you go over and you build this beautiful bond with the dog and with their human, and, you get welcomed into their life, and then you have to say goodbye. So hopefully we'll be able to, um, see each other again in the future and that. But that's probably a bit that I hadn't really thought about how hard that bit was gonna be until we actually did the goodbyes at the end. So, there was a bit of an emotional sort of heart tug on the last day. So that bit is pretty, yeah, that bit is pretty hard. The event itself, the hardest bit for sure is that you walk these 3 really hard courses at 7 a.m., 12 minutes past 7, and then at 20 minutes past 7 in the morning, one after another. And then you have to remember them for the rest of the day, and you don't get a chance to rewalk. And, you might run at 9, at 1, and then at 7 p.m. So that was definitely like the toughest sort of part of the like the running of the event. So I think we all developed some pretty good kind of like pre-run routines about trying to remember the courses and get our mind in the right place and doing all that pretend running next to the course or in the stables where we were waiting. You do the imaginary dancing thing where you look a little bit silly running agility without a dog. But those sorts of things to kind of help you navigate the bits that are hard and remembering the course before you go on.
But what would you say was the best moment?
Um, the best moment I think for me is actually summed up in one of the Team Australia photos that was taken. And it's this beautiful image of all of Team Australia standing, cheering, clapping for whoever had run. And there's a couple of people that were lined up and waiting to run. So they're not in that one. So I can't even tell you exactly whose run it is. I think it was Isabella's team run, and it's just this image of the whole of Team Australia celebrating. And I think that moment, like captured by the camera there, is the best moment for me because it sums up what it was like to be part of that team. It was a team that wanted every success for everybody there and shared that success amongst everybody. I think Sophie had a clear round at one point, which was phenomenal. Um, And there's a whole lot of other photos from that too, but just the joy on everybody's face for those sort of small moments um, of celebration, like they're the moments that I think like that's what we do agility for. Well, that's what we should do agility for. Maybe not everybody does, but yeah, they're the moments that I think make everybody feel those that sort of happy endorphin that comes with you. So my best moment's that photograph, but sort of the feeling that comes with that photograph from the event.
And do you think this experience has changed you as a handler?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it's made me motivated to make sure I'm teaching really good independent skills. And I think it's also motivated me, like I want to get rid of the slappy arm curse that I have for sure. That's one of the things. It also, I think, probably has motivated me to think about the outside the ring of agility a little bit more too, and really thinking about like the core skills the dog needs to station and wait beforehand, and like how to kind of support them a little bit more to do that. And it's definitely an experience I'd love to do again. So, you got to make sure that you, I guess, are keeping up your fitness and skills to be able to do that. Um, I think, you know, agility over there is obviously going to be a different experience to agility in Australia, because our community in Australia is smaller, and um, I want to recognize that, for a lot of us here, agility is a hobby. Whereas I guess the people that were at WAO, for some of those people, agility is also their career and their income. So the amount of time, I guess, you have to spend working on your skills and developing them to a particular level is going to be different. Um, but it's motivated me as a handler to go like, how can we bring some of those positives that could really benefit the agility community in Australia? How do we bring those into the community in a way that still honors the community that we have here? Um, so hopefully we'll be able to, we can't change everything, and we don't need to change everything, but hopefully we can kind of influence some of the small things that we might be able to change that could benefit everyone.
Thinking about the future and people who might be thinking this sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I should, potentially think about doing this in future. First question for that is, what does it actually cost to do this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot. So I cannot tell you the total cost of WAO. I do know. So I was away for a month in total. And that included a little bit of a holiday at the end. Um, and I think I spent somewhere between ten and $12,000 on the whole experience. So yeah, it's pretty. It's not your cheapest agility holiday, but I suppose a month in Europe for 10 grand is probably not too bad. I don't know. I'd never been to Europe before. I'd never been to the UK before, so I didn't really have a ballpark. But yeah, it costs a bit. You've got to save, but it's worth it.
Yep. So obviously it's the cost of a trip to Europe, and then there's additional factors for the competition itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we want to make sure we're doing the right things and looking after our hosts and their dogs as well while we're over there. So, um, yeah, there is a little bit more expense perhaps than, if you lived in Europe and were just traveling to the event. But the entry fees are pretty expensive. And, we did some team fundraising to definitely help outweigh some of those costs. But yeah, the bottom line is it's a trip to Europe plus a little bit more.
So what would you say to someone who is considering applying for WAO in future?
Take an empty suitcase because you're going to do heaps of shopping. I actually had to beg other people to bring some toys back because I had run out of room in my bag. So you definitely want to have room to bring all the amazing things back. The other thing I would say is like if you are at all interested and you think you want to go, back yourself. Like and, back yourself in that decision. Run other people's dogs as much as you can before you go. I was very lucky. I had lots of people offer me dogs to run, so that I had experience running dogs that weren't just mine. Um, and that was really helpful. Go to seminars with international judges or international trainers when they come. Definitely, train on their courses, find their courses online, set up little sequences so that you get a feel of what that's like. And 100%, I recommend some sprint training because you're going to need it.
And what is your main takeaway from this whole experience?
I think my main takeaway is that I just love agility so much. I remember sort of when I first started agility, somebody said to me, I actually think it was my parents said to me, well, would you want to go overseas and compete? And I was like, no, that seems weird doing that without your own dog. But it absolutely was not, it is an experience that helps you kind of grow as a human and you get to meet these fantastic people and dogs along the way. And I think it's an experience that, like, we just can't have it in Australia because partly because of our geography, and we just don't have the same amount of people as Europe and the UK together for agility. So you can't experience anything like it here, but everybody should get the opportunity to experience it if they want to, because it is, really, really fun. It's hard. It changes kind of how you approach the whole sport. Um, and you get to just, I guess, kind of sit and bask in this feeling of like total immersion in overseas agility on the world stage for a whole week. It's definitely, I would absolutely recommend anyone who's thinking about it to do it. I hope that I get to do it again, and I know that it'll stay with me for a very long time. And also, I would like to say a massive thank you. I've got a huge amount of gratitude for Rachel Dixon and Otis for loaning me Otis, for coming and traveling with me and being the most amazing travel buddies and hosts. I'm ever grateful to you, and I'm so thankful that I've made a friend through this experience as well. And also, a big shout out to team manager Tanya and team coach Tracy. We absolutely could not have got there without you. The amount of work that you did behind the scenes is huge. And we are very, very thankful for all of the both physical and mental and emotional support that you gave us throughout the journey.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. It's been great to hear all about it.
It's been very exciting to relive it. So thank you so much, Grace, for having me.
This has been Flat Out Agility. Be kind to dogs.